What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Exciting news. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the Department of Agriculture today with, I'm going to say this, the queen of this building. I have Secretary Blayne Arthur on the podcast with me today to talk about everything agricultural in Oklahoma. I really appreciate you having me down here.
Well, thank you for the invitation to visit. We always like the chance to talk about agriculture, and just look forward to visiting about everything that we do here.
Yeah. Recently, for those people listening, we just have in August, we're going to do, we're starting off our year's worth of podcast. Each week is going to be a podcast with the Department of Agriculture and Made in Oklahoma Coalition. Super excited for that one. This isn't one of those, I don't think, unless they want it to be. Don't have to be, but I'm really excited about that because a few of the recent podcasts I've done, one was with Native Acres out in Okauchee. Awesome,
yes.
Fabulous country
folks.
Family, amazing.
Folks.
And then a few others have just been agriculture based, and I'm like, there's more here. There's so many family stories in agriculture. That's what it is, isn't it?
Certainly, that generational piece is a huge part of ag, and certainly a huge part of ag here in Oklahoma. And you can kind of see that passion that gets passed down from generation. But then I think what we're really seeing now is kind of this newest generation has that passion, but then has brought kind of a new entrepreneurial spirit to a lot of these operations. And I think that's where we see kind of more technology being involved in protection agriculture and some new marketing and social media, things that 10, 20 years ago you wouldn't have seen a lot of. So you see that they learned from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, but then they've kind of gone out into the world a little bit and then came back home and said, hey, let's turn this into something even more exciting than what we've been doing. Yeah,
that reminded me of one of the Native Acres stories. Josh was saying that he has an app that tells him what the rainfall is everywhere on the farm, and his granddad still goes out every day and texts him. He's like, yeah, I know. I have an app.
Well, and that, that's the good and the challenging thing about some of our ag producers of different ages. Some of them are very set in their ways, but, now even for irrigation purposes, a lot of folks can run those pivots from their cell phone, whereas used to that might have taken half of your day going out physically to change those and check those. So it's a lot of opportunity that we see with the new technology.
Yeah, a lot of skill back in the day and trial and error, and I'm sure there's a lot of granddads and great granddads out there who are very good at what they did, but it took them a long time to get there, and now we have an app, and it's super easy to do now, right?
So many improvements. I mean, I thought that even last night so my husband and I, we raise cattle, and we were driving just our ATV that we feed with and you can push cows with, and once upon a time that was either a horse or on foot and or a wagon or something, and now you can just kind of buzz in and out and get so much more done much more efficiently.
Yeah, and not to mention the tractors that can now drive themselves by satellite.
They're pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive. But talking about family, you grew up in Chickasha, is that right?
I did, yes. So about 45 minutes southwest of Oklahoma City. Kind of your typical 4-H and FFA kid here in Oklahoma. My family raised lots of alfalfa, soybeans, wheat. I have two sisters, and we were very active in showing horses and livestock. Went to school there, had lots of opportunities through the 4-H and FFA program as far as leadership and personal development opportunities. Went to school at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater. My husband and I both did, and we loved Stillwater and decided to stay there after we got done with school. And my husband decided to be brave and start out on his own in a cattle operation, which has been very good to us. And then I said, well, if you're going to do that, I probably need to get more of a traditional 8 to 5 type job. But we've been very, very fortunate that things have lots of hard work, certainly, and lots of ups and downs, but it has worked well for us.
So growing up, are you the oldest or are you in right?
So I'm the middle.
Okay.
And my older sister, she's actually a veterinarian. She works for Oklahoma State University as a beef extension specialist. And then my younger sister just is involved in ag, but now she's actually a school teacher. So a little bit different path, but all of us certainly attribute the opportunities that we had and a lot of our achievements to that kind of foundation we got from both of those youth development programs.
Yeah. And growing up in, kind of in and around that, were you guys pretty competitive?
Incredibly competitive, yes. Yeah. There's no doubt, and kind of in everything that we do. Certainly, everything from the livestock shows to speech contests or whatever it might be. But even at our house, just a game of Scrabble gets pretty intense. So that's just kind of by nature of what we did, how we were all raised. But I think that has served us well in our professional careers as well, because we want to try to be the best that we can absolutely be within whatever area we're working in.
So growing up and, kind of in that, did you kind of have, growing up, do you have like a clear view of where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do? Or was it, I guess you already knew you wanted to go to Stillwater, but do you know what you wanted to do?
Not really. Now, growing up at Oklahoma State was just kind of a given of where you were going to go to school in my house. I knew I wanted to be in the ag sector in some form or fashion, but wasn't real certain what that looked like. And a lot of people, certainly will ask the question now, when you were a kid, did you think you'd ever be Secretary of Agriculture? And really the honest answer to that is, I don't know that I even really knew what the job entailed when I was a kid. So it's been a really unique path, and I've had a lot of people who have opened up a lot of doors of opportunity for me to allow me to kind of get to this point. Yeah,
you're right. Like growing up, kind of, I guess, going to OSU, it's like an ag-driven, totally an ag-driven town.
Absolutely.
And it's, when I was in college, I went to a few OU games and probably more OU games than I did at OSU at the time when I was in college. But since I graduated, a really good friend and my host family, they're huge OSU fans, and they just kind of brought me to the side and welcomed me in.
Yes.
So I would consider myself an OSU fan.
It certainly is just kind of a big extended family. I think so many of us in the ag community, we just settle so well into Oklahoma State University because the ag world is just kind of a big family. I mean, that's how we operate, and everybody helps each other. And so then you get there on campus and it's kind of that same feel, and people are very welcoming, and people, just as passionate as people are about agriculture, people are just as passionate if they're graduates of the university about OSU.
Yeah. So did your older sister go to OSU as well?
She did.
Okay.
Yes, she
and
did.
Younger sister
and
as well?
Younger sister went as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So all of us went to school there. Had some great faculty. I certainly think the College of Ag is the best college there on campus. But some wonderful faculty and staff that helped us kind of decide, what career option really looks. Now, my older sister was very decided on being a veterinarian, and that's what she went ahead and did. But I said, I love the ag piece of the world, but also, want to maybe look at ag business or what other opportunities there are there. So that's the great thing about the College of Ag, is I think they really help students to prepare to be successful in their career path. And I think all three of us would certainly say that was very beneficial to us.
Yeah. When does, I guess, the leadership side of things come in? Because that's kind of mated to both, right? Like what you do now.
So interesting, we did lots of leadership development activities, certainly through the FFA program. And I'll always plug 4-H and FFA. And I say if I could have every kid in Oklahoma be in those programs, I would do that because of the personal development piece of it. But I think it certainly really helped me get involved in campus activities. And then later on in the workforce, you're comfortable speaking in front front of people because you've done that a lot. You know, you've been in speech contests and you've answered questions. It kind of becomes old hat. You're comfortable working with all types of different people. I think it kind of gives you a leg up on maybe some other folks who didn't have that leadership development experience once you enter into the workplace, because you've done a lot of those things prior to your kind of formal career. And then that helps because I'm the same way here at the department or other places I've worked. If we have people who we interview that have that 4-H or FFA experience, I want to hire them because I know that they've got a skill set that'll be beneficial to the organization.
Yeah, like I said, because you've personally been through it, you know the value of it and you know what it did for you, and that I'm sure it's continuing to evolve as well and doing better and better every year. Absolutely.
I think a lot of times back to, because now pre-COVID, I spoke to a lot more groups. That has certainly adjusted to lots of virtual speaking opportunities now. But, you know, our ag teachers, when they'd have us rehearse our speeches and really focus on our delivery and communicating with our audience and answering questions, well, I do that a lot now. That may be with a commodity group, that may be with members of the legislature. I've had to do that some with media interviews this spring. And you learned that skill as a younger adult, and so you have a much greater comfort level, I think, later on. Yeah, you're right. Comfort's a great word for it, because, you know, being under the lights and being in front of a camera, and because they are bright lights, and you have your microphone or 3 or 4 microphones shoved in your face, it can be very overwhelming. You know, it certainly can. It's interesting, and I know so many people have seen the governor at a multitude of press conferences this spring, and they called the one day because we had some unique challenges in the ag sector, and they said, well, could you come over for this afternoon? We're going to talk. There are going to be some questions about ag and what's going on. I said, you bet. And they said, well, do you feel like you really need prepped on this? And I'm like, I think I'm good. Yeah. You don't want to be overly confident, but comfortable. I've just, you know, when you give a speech to 3 judges in a room and they really kind of drill you with questions, it prepares you for maybe those questions that come from the media. Yeah. So while you're at OSU, how quickly was it determined that you knew exactly what ag degree you were doing? So I tell this story a lot when I talk to college students. I have an agricultural economics degree. And when I went kind of for my campus tour, and, you know, you talk to faculty, and those have certainly even evolved since I first went to college. But at that point, you know, they kind of gave you all these options. And so I said, of the students that are graduating now, which degree has the highest number of students that have a job when they walk across stage at graduation? And at that time, it was the Ag Econ degree. And so I said, perfect, that's what I would like to do because I'd like to have a job. And I mean, incredibly fortunate that I had, you know, several job interviews before I even graduated. And certainly kudos to OSU and the College of Ag, because they do a great job with those career fairs and getting kids set up for that. But several options, and then had a job when I graduated, which is a really good feeling after you get done with college. So I didn't. That's why I got into real. I was like, I think I can do this real estate thing. Sure, I'll do that. Why not? There you go. I did actually try working for a little bit, and I'm a golfer. I like to be outside, which is probably the same with the ag industry. You just love to be outside as much as possible. Absolutely. So you have a job, you graduate, and then I guess you step out into the world. Absolutely. So I started my first job out of school was with an entity that's called Rural Enterprises Incorporated. They're headquartered in southeastern Oklahoma in Durant. And so I was doing small business lending projects. A lot of Ag Econ grads end up in the finance sector of the world, and traveled a lot. My territory was everything north of I-40. So that was a good experience for me, just to kind of be out there on my own and talking to chambers of commerce, lenders, people with the Department of Commerce here in Oklahoma. Learned a lot about a lot of things pretty quickly. You know, you think you know a lot when you get out of college, and then you realize that you don't know as near as much as you want to. Really enjoyed that. And my husband starting up his business those are everyone who knows who tries to start up a business, that's a stressful time. But really wanted to come to the ag world kind of formally, do something in ag all the time. And Dr. Becky Brewer, who used to be the state veterinarian here at the department, called and she said, well, I think that Secretary Peach is looking for someone to come work for him kind of on special projects. You should call and talk to him. Didn't know him, didn't know a whole lot about state government, and I thought it was just, when they called to set up the interview, I thought it was kind of a courtesy interview. Dr. Brewer was a good family friend, and I thought it was one of those, okay, we'll let this gal come and talk to us just to be polite.
Yeah.
And so I left, and on the way home, he said, hey, when can you come to work? Just, again, very, very fortunate that he let me come to work for him, worked for him for a couple of years. He was a cabinet member for Governor Henry, and then Governor Fallon was elected, and so we got a new Secretary of Ag, Jim Reese, and I did not know Jim at all. And typically in politics, when you have a change in leadership and administrations, then people leave. I mean, that's just kind of or they're asked to leave or they leave or a little bit of everything. Very much appreciative of Secretary Reese. He let me stay. He didn't know me. I didn't know him, but he said, yeah, sure. Why don't you do our legislative work for the agency? Worked for Jim for about 6 years. And then knew that we would have another gubernatorial election. And I had survived one swap of the governors. And so I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be lucky enough to survive another one. And I've got, at that time, my kids were much younger. I drive about an hour back and forth from Stillwater. And a good friend called and said that the 4-H Foundation, which is based there in Stillwater, was looking for a new executive director. Theirs had retired, and they said, you should, you love 4-H, it'd be close to home. And so just really fortunate that those pieces all kind of came together. And really, the kind of, you always make these plans for life, and then life kind of interrupts them. The plan was to be there for a while, hopefully maybe until my kids graduated. And then Governor Stitt was elected. I did not know the governor either. And his staff called and said, hey, people said we should talk to you about agriculture. Would you come have breakfast with the governor? Which is a cool phone call, right?
Yeah. Can't really turn that one down, can you?
So I said, absolutely, I would love to do that. And then eventually ended up here working in this capacity again at the department. So I wouldn't say that I had ever thought, this is my plan to get from A to B. I just like to give lots of credit to folks that gave me opportunity or believed in me or said, we think you can do this. Because you've always got to work hard, but you've also got to have folks that give you that chance to be successful.
Definitely. It's funny when people, like, they may not know a certain person and they may see their resume and be like, oh, they got this job because they know that person and family connection and da.
Right.
Well, yes, to an extent, yes, that is because of that, but also because of, and for the most part, it's because you've worked extremely hard at what you've done. And that's the other part. I mean, there are situations where people get jobs because they have a family connection, but for the most part, it's because they work hard.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. Yeah.
And you get, people saying certain things or whatever, but from listening to you, it clearly, people don't just call you if they have no idea, they don't know you, but people are recommending you. Like the governor call. You don't just get that because you know somebody.
Well, and very appreciative, and they have heard me say this, but I call them our ag groups here in Oklahoma, but that would be our commodity groups from Pork Council to Oklahoma Cattlemen Association, Farm Bureau, AFR. They were all very kind to support me in this capacity, and that's what it takes people being supportive of you to have opportunities like this. So I'm very appreciative, and I'd had the chance to work with them before, but I also, that's why I tell when I talk to young adults or college students that these relationships that you build over time, you may never know, how that may come full circle to you later on in life.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. I mean, and especially in Oklahoma, it's such a small city, town, state.
Exactly.
Especially in each industry, you know exactly you either know that person or you know somebody who has worked or been, it's...
Yes, it doesn't take long in Oklahoma to, someone can say, well, I'm from Okarche. Well, you can ask about 2 questions and you figure out that you know someone or related to someone from there. So it's a small world for sure.
From your previous job as being a lender and driving around and stuff like that, like some of the towns you must have rolled into you've never seen before.
There is no doubt it was, because I went all the way up to, I had a good friend who was in Buffalo, so you probably know where that is, up in the northwestern part of the state, and we did a finance project in Freedom. He said, we need to come to Freedom, and we need that, and I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And is there potential here for this to be successful? But what I really loved about that is I met so many Oklahomans who were so incredibly passionate, certainly about where they lived, and wanting to see that rural development and just see Oklahoma be successful. Because certainly as you travel different parts of the state, Oklahoma can be a harsh climate-wise, to live in. And so people, I think you really see that love for the state and for what they do and for those, the Friday Night Lights, small town community. I always say people don't live in Oklahoma because of the weather. They live here because of the people. And I think people don't understand that until they have a chance to come here and really see. I think we grow the best people in the world here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's hard to try and convince people to come here if they've never been here before, right?
For sure.
It's, and even with me, like it took me a while to convince my high school friends, 2 of my high school best friends, to come out and visit. And I got them in for a weekend, and we traveled. They flew in on a Friday. We had a couple of nights out here in town, and then we flew and did a road trip from San Francisco down to LA.
Oh wow.
It was awesome. But I was like, come here first. Just come here for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And then the year later they came back for a full week, and they get it now. But initially it's tough, isn't it, to get people into town, and even if they don't live in a big city, in something like I said, the Friday Night Lights in the rural towns. And I drove out yesterday to do a podcast in Jet, Oklahoma.
Yes,
and
Jet Nash.
I mean, driving through Nash, I was just like, okay, I know there's a police officer pulled over. What's the speed limit?
Right,
just in case I get pulled over. But yeah, like so many towns on the way up. I'm like, this is awesome. Little one-stop towns, but you can see how much character there is in those places. Oh,
and just the people that you find. I mean, you can't replicate that experience. I think that's what it is. And certainly now having kids, and my kids go to a very small rural school, and I mean, just the all the experiences and the relationships that are built in those. I mean, I think that makes us very unique here in Oklahoma.
Yeah. I saw somewhere I was reading a part of your bio, which I think it's like the same on 2 or 3 different websites, which is really good actually, because it helped. But it said like something about you having a job in social media.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yep. So when I first came here to work for Secretary Peach, I was the social media coordinator for the department. And so if you scroll back that many years, social media is not what it is today, right? But it was this opportunity because there's only about 2% of us that are involved in production agriculture of the population. And so I saw it as a chance, certainly, to show what the department does, but also for consumers to see, how's my food being raised? Where is it being raised? How are people raising livestock? And 2, I think we've really learned that they're several generations away from the family farm, and they want that experience. They want to get to know that producer, or have a chance to, go do pick strawberries at someone's place. Sure. And I think, to your point of people liking to be outside, I think everyone does. Some people just have forgotten that, or they haven't ever had that experience. So social media was such a great opportunity to kind of share the department story, but then to start merging in all these stories from all the ag sectors. And now we have certainly people much more talented than me that use social media as a great tool to really share ag story with the world. Yeah,
it's just big. I mean, I guess you were in it from like the grassroots point, right? And just come in and like, okay, like I can kind of build something here. And then now it's just kind of, I mean, social media is taken off, right? And it's like that's where everyone's spending their ad dollars, and that's where everyone's eyeballs are.
Absolutely. It's a unique thing, because I say I didn't have a cell phone when I went to college, right? And I don't feel like I'm that old. But to now where our lives, are kind of off of our cell phone. It's where we get our news. That's how we pay our bills. That's how we communicate with people, and I know there's certainly lots of criticism of social media. There's no doubt some people, but I think, even for our little family cattle operation, I'll post photos of what the kids are doing or what we're doing, and I'll have people that are acquaintances or work friends that'll say, now, why are you all doing that? Do you know, just out of interest, so why are all your cows having their calves at the exact same time? Like, how do you do that? So then for us in ag, it's this great way to have a good conversation about what we do and why it's important.
Yeah. And that's all it is, right? It's like, if, the goal is, if I can continue to share stories and create awareness, it's going to create a buzz, and for the most part, like I said, you're going to get a few messages. Oh, why do you do that? Why do you do this? What do you think of this? And it just builds community.
Yes.
And I'm sure I think some of the older generation who didn't grow up with phones or iPhones for sure, they're like, why are you on your phone all the time? Like, well, sometimes they're building more meaningful connections and learning more. And obviously there's downsides to it too. Playing video games, not video games, but playing games on your phone and having you scrolling endlessly to try and find the bottom of the internet is it mentally probably has some downsides, but there is so much good from it. And even from my experience with building like the This Is Oklahoma, the social media side of that, I have so many more friends now. And I know so much about more people because we've engaged and talked.
And information that you can access, whereas, once upon a time you would have had to driven out to Black Mesa, right? Yeah. Well, now someone can go there and video what they're doing and share that experience with you, and then you go, oh, that's what I need to do with my family. Yeah. Or what, it just gives us, I think, a chance to cast a much wider net, but also just to communicate. And I think these younger generations are going to demand that we continue to communicate that way.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's awesome. And then just seeing how businesses have taken to it and used it, and it's free, right?
Yes,
social media is free.
Yes, for sure.
So it's great to see the way that people are doing things, and I hope it continues. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, which is awesome.
I don't think so. And what I love, so I was back to Oklahoma State. I was in a sorority at OSU, which as a kid never would have thought that was the path that I went, but I ended up there and it was great for me. But just so many of my sorority sisters from college that they'll see things that I put in their they don't have an ag background, but they love the chance to talk, or they say, well, can our kids come out and see to your all's place? And absolutely. And you get to kind of check in on people's lives and see their stories as they're unfolding.
Yeah, I can imagine growing up, being in the ag world and riding horses and showing cattle. Sorority life's probably completely the opposite, right?
I will tell you, the first 2 weeks, I called my dad and said, this is a terrible idea. Why did I do this? And then I think life is kind of ironic, because then I actually was president of my sorority my last year of college. So I guess that's some humorous joke in there somewhere. But it was so wonderful for me, and I lean on that a lot, actually, in this capacity, because I lived in a house with 85 other girls who the majority of them didn't know anything about ag. Right. So it was a chance for me to say, this is kind of your perception of what we do, and that's not what we do. Let me tell you what we do and why it's important. And hopefully, they cared more about where their food comes from and how it's grown and what we do as farmers. So now when I think at whatever audience that we're trying to communicate with here, it's kind of a good sounding board for me to say, okay, this is kind of the lens that this group may be looking through, and we need to find them where they are.
Right.
So
actually educate them on like the process and where everything's coming from, the stuff that they're eating, not just chasing cowboys around Stillwater, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
How was like sports at OSU at that time? Was it good?
Not really. No. Well, I say that basketball was great.
Okay.
Basketball was great. Football, not so much. So the stadium didn't look anything like Boone Pickens Stadium looks like now. But that's a time at basketball when we would wait, hours and sometimes a day before to get into the student section at Gallagher Iba for the basketball game. So just kind of a different focus, and we look forward to when it's that way again on campus. But yeah, I think the first year I was there, we went like 2-10 in football. So it was a little different, a little different then for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any, I guess, kind of top memories from college?
Oh, top memories from college. Probably one of my most interesting, because I went to Chickasha, which wasn't a big town, but certainly bigger than some towns. And I vividly remember the first day, and I was living in the dorms. You're trying to figure out this campus and where to go. And so I'm walking, typical freshman, and again, this is really kind of before cell phones and things, right? So I've got my class schedule printed off, and I'm trying to make sure that I get there on time. And I'm walking down the street, and obviously kind of lost and can't find the building. And I heard someone holler at me. It was one of my friends that I knew from the FFA program, a couple years older than me. And they're like, "Oh, I know exactly where it is. I'll take you over there." Which I know is just a tiny little memory, but it was just like this kind of like, okay, I'm in the right spot. There's other people like me here. Welcome. They're going to help me be successful. Loved homecoming at OSU. The best homecoming, I think, in the United States. So lots of hours back to my sorority time of getting the house decks ready. Lots and lots of hours doing that. I really, and I know not all college students go to class all the time, but I really enjoyed my classes and professors, and a lot of it because it had an ag focus, which is what I cared about. But college was a very, certainly I enjoyed the campus activities and the academic activities there on campus. And Stillwater's just, you kind of feel like home. Even though you're away from home, you feel like you're at home.
Do you remember what the themes were for decorating for homecoming?
Oh, I don't know that. I remember the fraternities that we were paired with, but I don't know that I remember any of the themes because
it's such a big deal.
It's huge. It's the time and energy that everybody puts into it, and it's just it's that small town dynamic again that everybody's like, this is what we do, and we welcome everyone back in the fall for another year of memories, kind of creating new memories and then reliving old memories. I
took my mum and dad were in town last year, so we got tickets and we went to it. And I say my mum and dad, my dad and my brother. My mum, she was at home knitting or reading, enjoying the sun. She not her cup of tea. But,
it's a lot of people. But
my dad and brother, they couldn't believe, and friends of us that we went with surprised us with our tickets came in a lanyard, whatever you call that, suite level tickets. Whatever it was. Our friends surprised us with that. So my dad was like, "This is a college game, This is kind of a big deal.
It's a big time. It's a big time, and they do a great job.
They had a great time, and did a little bit of tailgating and going up and down, see the restaurants and the bars, and drinking all the famous drinks and all that kind of thing. They had a great time. My brothers had a very sore head the next day.
Most folks in Stillwater can help you have a good time if that's what you want to do.
They had a really good time. I guess so. Moving to more, current day and kind of just what things that dealing with. I know you said you're doing a lot more Zoom call, I guess now rather than speaking in person. But what's the day-to-day job look like? For people who don't know, what do you do?
So I'll give a little bit of background because the Secretary of Ag position here in Oklahoma is kind of a unique position in that you serve as a cabinet member for the governor, but then also the director of the agency. So we've got a little over 400 employees that work at the agency. So you can think about daily administrative things that come along with the workplace. But then the Secretary of Ag is also a member of the Board of Equalization, a member of the School Land Commission, and the member of the Board of Regents for the OSU A&M system. So on any particular day, it could be, this morning I had a meeting with the governor on an issue, and then we're doing a meat processing webinar for those who are wanting to get in the meat processing sector. So I did a quick virtual welcome for that. Then we had another Zoom call about CARES funding and talking to the legislature about what's going on, and then had to go back over to the Capitol for another meeting with some staff over at the Capitol. And so if you ask my kids, they would just say that I go to a lot of meetings is what my kids would say, but it's balancing out making sure the Department of Agriculture is running well and doing the job that we're supposed to do, but then also working with the ag industry, with all of our commodity groups on issues that are important to them and important to our ag producers here in Oklahoma. But then I'm so glad that, years ago that someone, made sure that ag had a seat at those other tables as well, because as we've become a more urban society, a lot of times I'm the only ag voice at the table. So we want to make sure that ag is not forgotten and that rural Oklahoma is not forgotten in those discussions. So just interfacing and, a lot of times it's just networking, getting the right folks together. A problem may come to us and I say, well, I don't have the solution, but I know the folks who can help you find it. And so a lot of times we're just trying to get, if it's other state agencies or just different producer groups together to solve challenges in the ag world. Now, there's certainly some days are more challenging than others. This has been a unique spring and summertime because of the COVID situation and how that has impacted not only agency, but then also just our producers. And we had lots of consumers who went into the grocery store and couldn't find what they were looking for. And so this has been a unique experience. I know everybody, unprecedented is kind of an overused word probably at this point in time, but we've all learned a lot about a lot of things this spring and summer and how to navigate through some challenging situations.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I mean, it's a crazy time for most industries, but like you said, it's probably brought a lot more awareness to some businesses that are producing and, a lot more farmers markets now, right? Because I don't want to go to the store or my store doesn't have this because the shipment hasn't come in from wherever in the country, but my farmers market has it and it was grown here.
Yes.
And that's just such a good thing to happen.
It is. And, we in America, we have the safest, most affordable food supply in the world.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've all become very accustomed to and rely on. And we saw that food supply chain break earlier this year. And I certainly think the opportunity then for the ag producers, and to your point of the farmers market, is, a mom like me in the grocery store says, well, hey, if I can buy my fruits and vegetables or my beef or whatever it might be, I want to talk to that person that raised the product, and I want to support Oklahoma producers. So we certainly see it as this tremendous opportunity. And two, we know that's what consumers want, and we know our producers can produce it. And so we just keep trying to foster those relationships and kind of that continued development.
How does Oklahoma agricultural industry stack up to other states?
So we're a very strong ag industry. We're also very diverse, which is very interesting. Okay. If you pick a particular commodity, if you want to talk about beef cattle, we're number 2 in the United States for beef cattle. So only one ahead of us is Texas, which probably doesn't surprise folks. But we're also one of those states where we have more cows than people, which if you live here, that probably doesn't surprise you either. Our top commodities here in the state are beef cattle. We have a lot of hog production, poultry production, and then wheat. And so we're in the top 10 in a lot of different commodities. But then we have everything. We have a forestry industry, down in southeastern Oklahoma that a lot of people don't think about. And everything from pecans to specialty crops. We just, because Oklahoma is so geographically diverse, a strong cotton industry in southwestern Oklahoma. So we grow a little bit of everything here in the state, which gives us some great perspective, especially on the national level when we meet with other ag commissioners across the U.S. They may be very kind of commodity specific or not have some of the things that we have here in Oklahoma. So I feel like it gives us a good voice at the national level because we have producers that are in that area and are very successful in that area, and then we can kind of help guide maybe some policy that impacts them.
Yeah, you're right. It's so diverse, isn't it? And that's one of the things that Lieutenant Governor Pennell was saying, that like Oklahoma has so many different ecosystems. I think there was like California and Alaska and maybe one other is only ahead of us or equal to us in ecosystems. And I don't think people realize like how awesome that is.
Oh, absolutely.
All the places that you can go, you can go all over the state and see different things and different, like I said, different ecosystems, which, I think Oklahoma is viewed as just being super flat and boring and,
kind of a flyover state. I mean, I think most people think that, but then, you can go down to Beaver's Bend in one corner and then to Black Mesa in another, and everything that you see in between. It's incredible. It's even interesting. So growing up in Chickasha, and then now living east of Stillwater, that's about a 2-hour difference driving. Just the difference in living and that, a little bit west of 35 and now a little bit east of Interstate 35. It's a totally, from the amount of rainfall that we get to the geography and the land and what we can do from an ag production perspective for no more than 2 hours drive really is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and yesterday was a great day because it rained all day yesterday.
Yes, we like rain. We like rain in ag. We always like, especially in July. We really like rain in July.
Yeah, coming from, Wales naturally is known as it just rains all the time. And, when I first came here, I'm like, I hate the rain. Like it just it's miserable. It's just but it's a different kind of rain. It's kind of grim, grey, and constant. Doesn't stop. It's not the heavy downpour that we get here. And it was raining yesterday, and I just started smiling. I was like, I'm in Oklahoma now because I actually appreciate this rain for my yard.
That's exactly right.
Oh, I was texting some friends. It's raining here. I kind of like that. It kind of feels good. I went for a walk this morning. I kind of been going for a walk every morning, and it was raining this morning, and most part I would have been like, back home, like, I'm not going for a walk, it's raining.
Right.
Today I was like, throwing my jacket. Oh, it's, I actually was out in shorts and a t-shirt because it was still 80 degrees.
It's still plenty warm with the rain coming down, for sure.
I guess talking about ecosystems and places around the state, do you have a favorite place or a place that's like a go-to for you guys when a kind of weekend away?
So we always, and my husband grew up in Chickasha as well, and so we always laugh that even, over 20 years now living where we do, that we feel more at home in southwestern Oklahoma. Yeah. Do you know what? And a lot of that's just, I think when you're raised there, that's just, but Quartz Mountain is wonderful, and we like to just go because we don't, we're not on that west of 35 as much. So western Oklahoma always feels a little bit more like home to us. So we like to, there's several agritourism venues and just places. And my husband, because of the cattle business, we've got lots of friends that are in the cattle business, so we may go and just stay with them for a day or two, and he kind of looks through their cattle operation and they do business, and then we get to enjoy being out in the country and away from big city and concrete and pavement and all those kind of things.
And sometimes boring, annoying emails, right?
Yes, if we can find somewhere without any cell phone service, that's always a bonus as well, if we can do that.
Yeah. So. We didn't touch on this earlier, but where did you guys meet?
Well, we basically we dated in high school, so we're high school sweethearts, which is unusual, I know. But we dated for a long time before we got married, so both went to college, and then I think we kind of decided either we're going to get married or break up with each other, and so we decided to get married. But both my family and my husband's family, a lot of them still live there in the Chickasha area, so kind of a unique story, but he very much has an ag background as well. And we were in FFA together, and so it has been it has been very good for us.
One of those kind of small town relationships that if you break up, it destroys part of the town for a little bit.
Well, that is true. I will say. So we got married in Chickasha, which is the same church where my parents got married, and my older sister got married, and which we love about small town. You know, there were like 5 different showers but then you also had to register at 3 or 4 different places because you didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings and not register with them, and so it was hard to kind of pare down the wedding list because we both just had our families were there and we had been there growing up. So, but just a wonderful opportunity to have.
That's awesome. I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're running close to the hour mark, but kind of final, I guess, few quick fire questions.
Okay.
In the ag industry, whatever truck you drive, depending on brand, can be a certain, that's a big topic in the ag industry. So are you a Ford? Are you a Dodge? Are you a Chevy? What?
Oh, so I'm a Chevy, but my husband just brought a brand new Dodge Dually. So he's going astray. But in high school, I drove a Chevy 454 extended cab Dually. That was my vehicle that I drove in high school and in college. So I'm still kind of a Chevy gal, but we just got a brand new Dodge. So.
Driving that, parking that at the sorority house, I'm sure was fun.
It got lots of comments. It was red too, so it got lots of comments and lots of humorous comments from my friends. I do not drive a dually back and forth anymore now, but you became a really good driver because you just didn't have a lot of other options. So.
Yeah, you got to be very aware of where you're driving.
Yes.
I guess the next one would be go to cheat meal. Super random.
Go to
cheat meal, just favorite meal, I guess, randomly.
Oh, meal. Okay, cheat meal. Okay.
Yeah.
For sure, steak. For sure, steak. Love mashed potatoes, but like mashed potatoes with like butter and sour cream and cheese in them.
Oklahoma mashed potatoes.
Yes, exactly. And then I'm a big ice cream is kind of my go-to. I'm a big fan of the ice cream, so I could probably eat that every day, all day.
All different flavors, or just all different places too?
All different places, and really kind of all different flavors.
Yeah.
I'm a big ice cream fan, that's why I have to spend more time on the treadmill and should probably eat a lot less ice cream and I wouldn't have to spend as much time on the treadmill, but no, pretty big ice cream gal.
Yeah, it's definitely good for the soul. Has to be. I mean, I love ice cream too, and
it just makes you happy. Don't you feel happy after you eat ice cream?
Yeah.
And I always say I'm supporting our dairy producers, so it's good all the way around.
Yeah, I hate it when I have to drive by Brahms and not stop in and grab something. Like it's kind of annoying.
It's good ice cream. Ice cream.
We had I was on we had a leadership class Zoom call the other day, and one of the questions was, "What's your favorite ice cream?" And there was a lot of surprising flavors that I'd never even heard of, and a lot of like butter pecan and all that kind of stuff, and some vanilla, which I'm yet to meet those people in person. I'm sure they're wonderful people. I'll bring them to some flavors soon, I hope. But one of the questions that I asked was, when you go to the Brahms, you get the double dip with the waffle cone. What two do you mix together?
Oh, yeah.
And recently, my latest two have been birthday cake and either chocolate almond, which is super like left field, or birthday cake and strawberry.
Okay, see, I'm a big strawberry fan, and I would probably, and it sounds really crazy, but I'm a chocolate chip cookie dough fan too, and so those seem like they wouldn't go together, but they're actually pretty yummy, so you have to try that one,
definitely.
Maybe.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me down, to sit here and chat and share some stories. I'm definitely going to go have some ice cream now, and everyone listening should do the same. So,
for sure.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.